Hi, art friends. If you are on the search for a perfect paper to use with your figure drawings and you want to be able to draw in both black and white media, I might have an option for you today. If you know me, you may know that I am always on the hunt for a new paper, primarily because every time I fall in love with a paper, it gets discontinued. So maybe I should be careful and not fall too far for this one or it'll be gone. But over the years, I've found certain papers that I really like for specific reasons and other papers that maybe I don't like for specific reasons. So I want to start off by letting you know what we're going to be taking a look at today, and that is the Hahnemuhle series of gray and cappuccino papers. So I have the pads here today in the A4 size. They also come in bound books. So there's the gray and here's the cappuccino. I like to use a lot gray papers or tan colored papers for my figure drawings so that that white paper shows up. And in the past, my favorites have been the Rowney Canford card in the medium and darker grays. And I've also really liked the Kona papers. I'm not sure how many people were using these, but the Kona Classic papers had a wonderful gray and tan, but they were also discontinued. I also have liked the cardstocks that were put out by Blick in Scotch Gray, and although those and their construction paper version of Scotch Gray are not always the most light fast, they're definitely really affordable. And what I like about those papers is that they have enough tooth to pick up the charcoal, but they don't have a lot of texture. So I like my hatch marks to show up and not be obliterated by a bunch of pock marks, which tends to happen on papers like the Canson Mi Tientes. I do like the backs of those papers too, but for me, a perfect paper is one that has a good value on it so that the white really shows up on top. It's relatively smooth, but not shiny, and it has a little bit of tooth to pick up that charcoal, but not enough texture to diminish the marks. So let's take a look at this paper, and I'm also going to show you some drawings that I have done on that paper so that you can see what that looked like. Now, taking a look over here at the paper, I'm just going to start with the gray pad to begin with. So let me just do a switcheroo. And I know it's going to be difficult to kind of see very much on here, but what I want to point out is this is a decent medium value. If we look at the contrast with the inside of the cover, which is white, we can see that maybe it's not perfectly in the middle, maybe it's slightly lighter, but it's definitely dark enough for white to have a lot of contrast, and I like that. That's very good. I've also had students that are not super fond of when there are flecks in the paper, and this doesn't appear to have any flecks at all. It's not perfectly smooth. There's a little bit of kind of like graininess to the paper, helps it still feel natural, but no kind of like little marks or pieces of lint that appear to be in here. It's also really, really smooth, like super silky smooth, but you can see it's not shiny. So as I'm holding this up, there's no like gloss to the paper, so that's good. But I will say the paper is really, really smooth, and when I drew on it, I felt like I needed to be really careful. So when I'm drawing on super smooth surfaces like Stonehenge, that like hot press paper, or on Bristol board, those surfaces are so slick, I feel like I need to be really careful, and that definitely happened on this. And these sheets are really, really thin, so I'm not sure if you can tell by how easily it moves, but this is not a heavy piece of paper. So if you're used to working on cardstock, this might feel a little light and delicate for you. However, there are a lot of charcoal papers that I've worked that are way, way thinner than this one. So this is a 55-pound. It's a pretty light paper. And then you can see this cappuccino color really has a lot of kind of peach and pink in it. When I'm looking at my screen right now, the picture is actually showing more yellow than I am seeing here. But let's go ahead and make some comparisons to some other papers so that you can see some of the difference. And maybe you have these papers so that you could get an idea of what these look like. So here we have side by side the cappuccino and the gray. And now here we have the Stonehenge craft paper. So you can see definitely the craft paper is darker than the Cappuccino Pad from Hahnemuhle. And it has, I don't know if you can tell, but it has some flex and it's thicker. Like we can really feel the thickness of this paper in comparison to this one. All right, so that's the Stonehenge craft. Here's a paper that I have really liked that was discontinued. This is the Kona Classic. And again, you can see that this is darker. This paper is more pink, but it's darker. There are flecks and there are like little pieces and stuff like that in this pad. And also this one is a little thicker and it has a little more tooth. This one is very silky smooth. Now to compare the Cappuccino Pad, here is the Arteza, which actually I really like this paper. So if you can find this on Amazon, I've got a link down below and you can look for this. That's the only place that I have personally found the Arteza pad. And sometimes it's out of stock, but this one I really like as well. And if we take a look at the color, this Arteza is a little bit more green. And the Hahnemuhle gray pad is a little bit cooler, a little bit more blue. And I don't really have a strong preference either way. I like them both. So I wouldn't say really any preference for me there, although you might like one better than the other. Again, the Arteza is maybe a little heavier. What does it say? 81 pounds on the Arteza, whereas this is 55 pounds. But the value is about the same. So one isn't really darker or lighter. The Cappuccino Pad seems lighter than some other popular ones, but this gray seems pretty much in line what you're getting with the Arteza. Finally, this is another really common pad here, the Strathmore toned gray. Okay, so here is what the toned gray looks like in comparison. I do have a little charcoal on here that just kind of smudged from a drawing, but you can see that the Strathmore toned gray has a lot of flex in it and is a little greener as well than this gray pad, is a little cooler and bluer. So let's now take a look at a couple of drawings that I did on these two papers. We've got one on the gray pad and one on the Cappuccino Pad. And I do feel like I went at this really delicately because the papers pick up the charcoal really quickly and really well. So I had to use very light marks in order to have initial light marks. And it was not difficult to get the charcoal to go dark on these because of the way that it's so smooth, yet it has tooth, that it really picks up the charcoal. So you can see that here, that I was really able to get those dark marks. I built it up very slowly, and the white did stand off sufficiently on the gray pad, maybe a little bit less on the Cappuccino Pad. It made for a little bit more of like a delicate drawing, especially with that smoothness to the paper, but I really did enjoy drawing on both of these papers. Now, to wrap up this review of the gray pad and the Cappuccino Pad from Hahnemuhle, one of the big drawbacks that I have with these papers is that this A4 size is the biggest that you're going to get. So this is kind of close to an 8.5 by 11. It's not exactly the same. It's the European A4 size, but they don't make this any larger. They don't make it any larger in individual sheets. They don't make any larger pads. I'm not somebody who necessarily needs a huge 24 by 30 inch sheet of paper in order to do my drawings. It would be nice to have something more around, I think it's A5. Correct me if I'm wrong, my friends in Europe. Is A5 bigger or is it smaller? But just the next size up in that European size. It often works out to kind of like a tabloid size here in the United States. So it could be a 12 by 19 or 11 by 17 or somewhere in there. That would be really nice to be able to get this paper in that size. I'm not sure that I'm going to say that this is absolutely my favorite paper right now. I've been trying out some other papers that I've been really happy with too, but this is definitely in the top 3. I have not yet landed on what is going to be my new favorite non-discontinued paper. This is up there and it's a contender for that #1 place, but I'm just not 100% sure yet because I can't find it in a larger size and because it's so smooth. I feel like I need to be more careful on it than I do with some other thicker, more durable papers. I hope you have enjoyed this review of the Hahnemuhle cappuccino and gray pads. And if you have other favorite papers for charcoal drawing that you would like for me to review, let me know in the comments and I will see if I have tried them or I may buy a few sheets and try them out myself. Thanks so much and I'll see you again soon.